Child's Play is a 1988 American horror film, directed and co-written by Tom Holland and produced by David Kirshner from a story by Don Mancini. It is the first film in the Child's Play series and the first installment to feature the character Chucky. The story involves a widowed mother who gives her son a doll for his birthday, unaware that the doll is possessed by the soul of a serial killer, Charles Lee Ray. Child's Play was released in the United States on November 9th, 1988. It grossed more than $44 million against a production budget of $9 million. Along with the film gaining a cult following, the box office success spawned a media franchise that includes a series of 6 sequels, merchandise, comic books, and a reboot film of the same name, released in the summer of 2019. Screenwriter Don Mancini first conceived of the concept while studying as a film major at the University of California, Los Angeles. He claimed to have been inspired by the consumerism of the 1980s, the Cabbage Patch Kids, Trilogy of Terror, and the Twilight Zone episode Living Doll. Amazingly, the killer doll was inspired by the story of a real voodoo doll that traumatized a Florida family over 100 years ago. Robert the doll was gifted to Robert Eugene Otto in 1906 by his family's maid, who is believed to have practiced black magic and voodoo. The sailor-suited toy doll stands at 40 inches tall. He's stuffed with wood chippings and once bore painted features not unlike those of a jester. Legend says that Robert, who went by the name Gene, told his parents the doll mutilated his other toys and would knock furniture over during the night. When Gene died in 1974, the house was bought by a new family and converted into a bed and breakfast. Robert was found in the attic and given to the family's 10-year-old daughter. But she soon began to suffer from night terrors. Her other dolls were mutilated, and she claimed that Robert moved about her bedroom and tried to attack her. Frightened guests at the B&B reported unexplained footsteps and laughter coming from the attic. In 1994, Robert was donated to the East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida. Cameras and electronic devices are said to malfunction in his presence, and staff have reported shifts in his position and a change of expression. Some other versions of the legend tell that Robert was purchased by Otto's grandfather whilst on a trip to Germany in 1904 and given to young Otto as a birthday gift. According to legend, the doll has supernatural abilities that allow it to move, change its facial expressions, and make giggling sounds. Some versions of the legend claim that the doll vanished after Otto's house changed ownership a number of times after his death, or that young Otto triggered the doll's supernatural powers by blaming his childhood mishaps on the doll. According to folklore, the doll has caused car accidents, broken bones, job loss, divorce, and many other misfortunes. Some museum visitors supposedly experienced post-visit misfortunes for failing to respect Robert. Haunted dolls can be traced back across history. The earliest haunted dolls were puppets, effigies, and voodoo objects created by early peoples for either religious or ceremonial purposes. Some of these objects were later acquired by various civilizations for mystical purposes or the occult. In ancient Rome, dolls were used to represent a connection with a god or goddess. Egyptian priests and magicians often used puppets for ceremonial purposes, placing curses on those who went against the will of the gods. According to Wiccan beliefs, puppets have been used to place curses on members of a community. Earliest effigies were used by African, Native American, and European cultures. The term voodoo doll is commonly employed to describe an effigy into which pins are inserted. It's found in magical traditions in many cultures of the world. In West African culture, they used dolls placed inside or around homes, and for every wish or harm inflicted on another, a nail was driven into the doll's body. Additionally, chicken blood and other various liquids were often poured onto the doll's body and are described to have a malevolent ambience. Robert and other haunted dolls have been an inspiration to many movies and television shows. Of course, Child's Play, and more latterly, Annabelle from the Conjuring series. Psychology research around why people perceive dolls as creepy has been conducted with some varying conclusions. A 2013 study named doll collecting as one of the creepiest hobbies an individual could have. They are creepy because they might be dangerous, but you're not sure it is. In a 2015 article for the Smithsonian, it was stated, "Dolls inhabit this area of uncertainty, largely because they look human, but we know they are not. Since the doll lacks the ability to mimic human brains, that the most basic evolutionary tactic remains suspicious of whether or not it is human, since they may expect the doll to mimic their own actions. This leads to feelings of physical coldness when the doll does not act the way one thinks it should." The Child's Play franchise has generated over $250 million and earned a Saturn Award for Best Horror Franchise. It has not been without its controversies, as several crimes have been associated in the press with the Child's Play films. However, any supposed link between these crimes and the film has been denied by film censors. In fact, there is research to substantiate that horror films do not have a negative impact on individuals within society, particularly those who have been socialized according to the cultural norms. Rather, there are other factors in the personal and social development of individuals that lead to their propensity to commit heinous crime. Horror seems like an easy scapegoat. However, one only has to watch the news to see much more horrific and awful events unfolding before us. The Child's Play movies are loved by many. Yes, they're silly. Yes, they're nonsensical. A maniacal bit of plastic is running around carving people up. It's crazy, but it's also an awful lot of fun. Chucky stands alongside Freddy, Jason, and Michael Myers as one of the most iconic horror villains of the 80s. Only Chucky stands a little smaller. Mancini describes the film as a dark satire about how marketing affects children. Here at Monsters and Myths, we describe it as almost quaint. Classic 80s horror from a more innocent age that's still a great ride on the ghost train. Thanks so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please give us a like and subscribe, and take it easy.